Music producers, if you are not where you want to be in your career, it may be time for a wake-up call. Now, I'm here to tell you the things that the people closest to you won't, the things that you need to hear, not just what you want to hear. And in my mind, there are 5 main groups of producers who need someone to grab them by the shoulders and give them a good shake, metaphorically at least. So let's go through those groups so you can see which one you are, and then I'll run through the ways that we can fix it. And even if you don't feel like you're one of those producers that needs a wake-up call, make sure you stay till the end because a lot of times those are the people that need it the most. By the way, if you're new to the channel, my name is Adam and every week I make a new video about music production. So if that's something you're into, go ahead and subscribe and then let's get into it. So group number 1 is a group that I run into all the time and we're gonna call them the Backlog Brigade. These are producers and songwriters that have like dozens, if not hundreds of tracks on their hard drives. Some of them finished, some of them unfinished, but they're just letting them rot, collecting digital dust. And the reason they're rotting is because this Backlog Brigade is so focused on making music that they forget to handle any business. For these folks, the music business is 100% music, 0% business. This is like the sleeping beauty of music production. You're up in your tower with tons of beats, waiting for someone to brave the journey for you, slay the dragon, and then handle the business for you. But with every year that goes by, you become more disenchanted with the business, eventually calling it quits. And by the way, if this is you, let me know in the comments or let me know which other group you fit into because I'm curious to see which group has the most members. And I can even make a specific video for those groups that have the most comments. So the Backlog Brigade is group 1, but group 2 is the complete opposite. We'll call them the Connection Collectors. These are folks who collect industry contacts like they're infinity stones, sending email after email and DM after DM. But when they get a response, they don't have much to show that person. And I don't mean to call anyone out here, but since I've started making videos for this channel, I've been coming across more of these connection collectors. I'll get a really nice long email about how we should work together. But then when I ask to hear some recent work, it's a lot of backpedaling about how they mostly just have drafts right now and how there's big stuff coming. Basically, all talk and no tunes. Now, group number 3, I'm going to call the Revisionists. These are the producers who have been working on the same album or mixtape or whatever it is for as long as they can remember. Now, this is a group of folks who have been a month away from finishing their project for 6 months now. They're just 1 song away from having the record done, even though they said that 10 songs ago, or they really just need to get a little bit better at mixing before they wrap it up. A perfect storm of excuses, perfectionism, and insecurity rolled into a neat little ball that hasn't dropped a song since 2017. For a lot of the Revisionists, life just keeps getting in the way, whether it's a breakup, a move, a new job that's more stressful, or the fact that they don't quite have the gear to achieve what they want. There's always some reason in their back pockets, so when they get the question, hey, how's that record you've been working on going? Well, they know exactly what to say. Oh, and if you feel too called out by any of this, don't worry, because I am all 5 of these groups at some point, and we all are to an extent. I'm really calling out different versions of myself here, and if you catch a stray, then that's just what happens sometimes, if the shoe fits and all that jazz. Now, group number 4 is what I am dubbing the Good Enough Gang. These are producers that learned just enough to get through making a song, got good enough to get paid to make some music, and haven't improved in a marked way since. Lots of the Good Enough Gang have been using the same sample packs, the same mix presets, and the same chord progressions since day 1. And that's not in an I found a way that works and I'm sticking with it way. More so, it's the I'm a little more lazy than I'd like to admit, but nobody has called me on it type of way. These are the folks that have 100 plugins on their vocal chain, but they couldn't really tell you what compression is. Some folks like to call this being naturally talented or being the vibes guy, but at a certain point, you have to stop making excuses for yourself and see it for what it is. Now, group number 5, we're going to call the Flake Factory. These are the producers who are good enough at what they do, decent at securing gigs, but then they fumble at the 1-yard line because they communicate poorly, they don't deal with feedback well, or they simply go ghost on their clients. Now, if you're not getting much repeat business, or every project has some type of drama, or you find yourself drowning in unread texts and emails, this is probably you. If you are always busy, but you haven't celebrated one of your artist's release dates in months, then this is probably you. These are producers that overpromise and underdeliver, and it is holding them back more than they realize. Now, if you made it this far, chances are that you belong to at least one of these groups. Well, how do we handle it? Don't worry, I got you covered. So, the backlog brigade, the producers with full hard drives and empty inboxes. What we're going to do is get you on a business development plan of some sort. The fact is, if you've got 100 tracks wrapped up, but no clients, no placements, no business dealings in the works, working on song number 101 isn't going to get you any closer. So let's hit pause on making music for just a bit until that gets sorted out. So the first thing you need to do is come up with a plan for getting your stuff out there. And when I say plan, I mean stuff you're going to do, not goals, things that will happen to you. So if you think your music is good for sync placements, TV, commercials, movies, that sort of thing, you're going to spend the next few weeks finding ways to get your music in the hands of the people who make those choices. I have a whole video on how to do that, and I'll link it in the description so you can watch that next. Now, if you want to start producing for artists, what you're going to do is start going to shows, making friends with folks that do the type of music that you want to produce. But if you can't do that, you can even go on Spotify and search through playlists of people in your genre and find the folks at the very bottom who are making stuff that you like, that you can make, but they don't have 1 million monthly listeners already, and figure out how to get in touch with them and see if you can help. And if you want to release your own music, then start setting release dates, start setting deadlines for uploading them to get distributed, and get the ball rolling on things like album art and lyric videos. Basically, if you need to take a little break from working on music until you have a place for it to go, a plan to put the stuff you already have to use, and a reason to make more of it, then do it. Now, what I do not want you to do is go send 100 emails in one day, go to one local show, and then go right back to what you were doing. This should become a part of your process and a habit, because landing your next gig is always going to need to be a top priority, no matter how booked you are right now. For the connection collectors, I think you already know where this is going. Y'all need to put the brakes on cold calling until you have a bit more to show for yourself. When I was getting into sync music, I realized that I was doing a bit of collecting myself. So I pumped the brakes, I set aside a few good weeks to focus on producing, and came up with a plan. For me, that plan was to make a 10-song synthwave album, think Stranger Things or Tron, and then to go specifically hunting for a home for that record. That way, my foot in the door wasn't followed up with the cold and quiet declaration of, yeah, so basically I can make whatever you need. If you have any work, I'd be totally stoked to do it. People in this business want to help you help them, but you need more tangible things to show, because nobody is able to see inside your head. They don't have any reason to believe that you're a sick producer or a songwriter unless you can show them. Once you've got a plan in place, make the stuff, and then hit the pavement with a specific goal in mind, with specific songs in tow, and you'll find yourself getting more out of those connections that you've collected. Now, the revisionists, y'all are a tough nut to crack. There's usually some reason that you're holding up your own processes. And while I'm not going to play armchair therapist, there's usually some deeper seated reason that you're being so precious with the works that you have in progress. If it's an imposter syndrome thing, and if you feel like you really only have these few ideas, and once they're out there in the world, you'll be screwed when you realize you have no other ideas, that's something that you probably need to work through. If it's an insecurity thing, you're scared to have your work judged by other producers or by your audience, well, this may be harsh, but frankly, it's freeing to realize that pretty much nobody is going to care what you're doing. everyone is so busy working on their own stuff and worrying about how judged they are going to be, they don't have time to judge your work. The only thing they actually have time to judge is the fact that you have no work for them to judge. And if you're just sentimental about the tracks you have, or you're stuck in the loop of working on them over and over because it gives you something to do, then you need to team up with the Backlog Brigade, book a CD release show, and just get that monkey off your back so you can start the next era. Now, before we keep moving, I do want to mention that this video is brought to you by me. That's right, I'm my own sponsor. And today I'm here to tell you about the Producer Planner. It's a daily planner specifically for music producers that has all the fields relevant to us. Now, I designed this for myself to use before I even thought about printing it for other people, and it's helped me keep my day-to-day life organized, but it also has a goal forecasting section at the front of the planner, and the back has all kinds of useful things like split sheets for songwriting, input lists for big sessions, invoices, and even blank pages where you can put down some lyrics if you prefer pen and paper. Now, the link to purchase it will be in the description, but there's also a free PDF version that I will email you if you want to try it out before you buy it. So anyway, let's get back to the video. Now, good enough, gang. Y'all need to fall in love with learning more about the process. There is always more to learn, and nobody ever regretted getting better at the thing they love doing. If you've been using the same drum trigger since 2011, or the same vocal chain since the day they invented vocal chains, and you've been using the same excuses as to why you don't actually need to improve, this is your wake-up call that you will eventually get passed by the people who are willing to put in the work, improve, and learn. I would suggest a top-to-bottom approach, where you find a source you trust, be it an engineer or producer that you respect who has a course, maybe something like the Slate Complete Access courses or a masterclass, or something else, and learn the process from the start, because there are probably things that you've missed along the way, corners you cut without realizing, and skills you could pick up quicker than you'd ever expect. If you're part of the Good Enough gang, become a student of the game again, and love the process of learning, and you will watch yourself level up in ways that you never expected. You'll feel better about your own work, you'll feel more confident in your own skills, and your artists and peers will start to notice. Now, for the Flake Factory, this one is similar to the Revisionists, because the reasons people belong to this group can be a little complicated. If you're someone who has a hard time wrapping up projects and communicating well because you're unorganized, then putting a system in place to get that sorted is paramount. And no, that is not just me trying to get you on the Producer Planner. A Google Calendar or an app like Trello can also work just as well. Now, if you're someone who is bad with communication because you just don't like doing it, or you let your inboxes pile up because you're overwhelmed and you dread answering, then finding a communication style that works for you is super important. Like, I know a lot of producers who actually prefer talking on the phone because it stops you from having to sit there and agonizing over what you're going to reply to that text or to that email, what you're going to say back. Now, I also know others who literally only will communicate via email because it lets them keep all of their communications in one spot. Whatever works for you, figure it out. And if you take forever to finish tracks and actually get them back to your artists because you're overbooked, maybe it's time to raise your rates. Now, if you're taking too long because you're insecure about sending out something you don't think is totally perfect, you can always talk it out. Saying something like, hey, this is at a 90% right now, in my opinion. How do you feel about it? What do you think we can do to take it to 100? Well, that is a lot better than just saying nothing because you don't want to send something out that isn't a masterpiece. So if you're in the Flake Factory, well, you got to figure it out because your artists are waiting on you, they're depending on you, and they need you to finish those songs, to communicate well, so that they can keep their art careers rolling and eventually refer you to other people because you crushed it. So there we have it. 5 groups of producers who need a wake-up call and what to do about it. Now, if you have any tips that helped you get out of these groups, then please leave them in the comments to help out other folks who are in those groups with you. And other than that, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and then watch this video next.